And now we are ready for our next speaker because we are ready to talk about the European Research Council grants. You have heard our previous speakers mention the ERC, and here we are with Dr. Fotios Vikas. He works in the scientific department of the European Research Council Executive Agency. He has a PhD in physics, and after working as a researcher in academia and in the clinical department of a multinational pharmaceutical company, he joined the ERC Executive Agency with a focus on prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of human diseases panel. So welcome, Dr. Vikas. Thanks for joining us in our OECI Academy webinar. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to present. So I will share my slides. Okay, so like you said, so this is an introduction to the ERC, the European Research Council. ERC is part of Horizon Europe, just like Marie Sklodowska-Curie project, part of the Pillar 1 on excellent science. Overall, in Horizon Europe, the budget for the ERC is 16 billion, which represents 17% of the entire Horizon Europe budget. So it's quite a significant part of it. The ERC is composed of its scientific council, which is independent. It is composed of 22 members, which include the ERC president, and they have full authority over the strategy of the program. And the scientific council is supported by a dedicated structure, which is the executive agency, my employer. The ERC is about scientific freedom. So the Scientific Council established that the scientific excellence is the sole criterion for getting funded or not. And the aim is to support individual scientists, not consortia, not groups of researchers, but really a single PI with an excellent idea. There are no predetermined subjects. The idea is to allow scientists to propose their own research on any field they want, which we call the bottom-up approach. So we support frontier research in all fields of science and humanities, and the evaluation is based on an international peer review system. The budget for the 3 framework programs, so overall the ERC exists for about 20 years now. Until 27, the overall budget will be 36 billion euros, and you have the breakdown per year fully dedicated to funding projects. This is the Scientific Council. So the current president is Maria Leptin, a cell biologist. She is supported by 3 vice presidents, each in one of the domains. So you have a vice president for the life sciences, for the social sciences and humanities, and for physical science and engineering. And you have the full current composition of the Scientific Council in this slide, and their topics of of research. So the agency executes the annual work program as established by the Scientific Council. Basically, what we do is we implement the calls for proposals, we provide information and support to the applicants, we organize the peer review or evaluation, we establish and manage the grant agreements, and we take care of any follow-up which is needed, so in terms of scientific or financial aspects. Finally, we carry out communication activities, and we ensure that information is disseminated to the stakeholders. In summary, the ERC is about long-term grants for individual researchers from all over the world to pioneering projects in any field of frontier research: life sciences, physical sciences and engineering, social sciences and humanities. Why should you apply for an ERC grant? The ERC offers independence, recognition, and visibility to work on a research topic of your own choice, to gain financial autonomy for 5 years, to negotiate the best conditions of work with the host institution, to attract excellent team members and collaborators from anywhere in the world, to move with the grant to any place in Europe if desired. This is important. We call it portability of grants. You are not bound to your original host institution. and to eventually win additional funding. ERC is seen as very prestigious, so usually an ERC successful grantee is able to attract more funding over time. These are the 5 schemes that we have. There are 3 main schemes, which is the starting, the consolidator, and the advanced grant. So these 3 are for individual PIs, depending on the stage of career. So the starting grants is for researchers at the start of their careers. Basically, the eligibility window is 2 to 7 years after your PhD, with a maximum fund of 1.5 million for 5 years. The consolidator grants are for researchers who have already maybe established themselves and wish to consolidate further their team and the research. So for 7 to 12 years after the PhD, and you can request up to 2 million euros for 5 years. The advanced grant is for researchers with a track record of significant research achievements in the last 10 years. You can request up to 2.5 million for 5 years. Then we have the synergy grants. This is a collective grant for 2 to 4 principal investigators for a duration of 6 years and up to 10 million. Importantly, one of the PIs can be based outside of EU or associated countries. Finally, we have the proof of concept. This is a small additional grant only to ERC grant holders. So if you already have a main grant of the ERC, you can also apply for a proof of concept, which aims at bridging the gap between research and early stage of marketable innovation. This is a small grant, so 150,000 euros for up to 18 months. In this talk, I will focus mainly on the starting grants and the consolidator grants, as I understood that this is the young academy of the OSCE, but the general principles can also apply to the rest. As I said, excellence is the sole evaluation criterion. Excellence in terms of the research project, so for the groundbreaking nature of the project, the ambition and the scientific approach of the project, and also excellence of the PI in terms of intellectual capacity, creativity, and expertise and capacity to execute the project. There are no other criteria. Importantly, the host institution is not evaluated for the ERC. Then I will present here the process of the evaluation. It is a single submission, but a 2-step evaluation. For the first step, it starts by remote assessment. The panel are composed by the scientific council, and they get access to the proposal B1. The B1 is the synopsis of the research to be funded and the CV of the investigator. Then the panel meet in Brussels for a few days to select which applicants go to the next step, to the step 2. At the end of the panel meeting, you receive a score A, B, or C. C means that the panel thinks that the proposal is not of quality enough to be successful, is not up to the standards of the ERC. B means that it's a good proposal, but still not sufficient that they are interested in CEU is step 2. And then you have A. A means that the panel believes that you should be invited to the step 2, but there is a maximum number of 44 proposals which can pass to the step 2 per panel. So it might be that you can receive an A at the first step, but you are not invited because the panel thinks that there are 44 more interesting projects that they want to see at step 2. So then you would receive a score of A, not invited. All the rejected proposals at step 1 receive a feedback. This is all the individual reviews written by the panel members and also a summary of the discussion at the panel meeting. The practical difference between A, B, and C at step 1 is that the A's can reapply the next year, the B's have to wait 1 year so they can reapply 2 years later, and the C's have to wait 2 years so that they can apply 3 years later. So depending on the judgment of the panel, there can be restrictions to resubmitting an ERC proposal. Then if you are selected to go to the step 2, you are A, invited, and it starts again with a remote assessment, this time by panel members and also remote reviewers. So experts selected by the panel, and they all have access then to the full proposal, the Part B1 and the Part B2. There is again a meeting at the end of this remote phase with an interview of the applicants for the starting, consolidator, advanced, and synergy. Well, no, for synergy it's a bit different. So let's focus on the starting, consolidator, and advanced. After the interview, after this panel meeting, you then receive a score. Either the proposal is rejected, score B, the proposal is funded within the available budget, score of A. And then all the applicants, A and B, at the end of the step 2, receive again the feedback, all the individual reviews of panel members and remote reviewers, and the summary of the discussion. In this case, for applicants going to step 2, there is no restriction to reapplying the year after. So Bs can reapply if they are to the next year. Anyone from anywhere in the world can apply. This is opportunities for researchers outside of EU and associate countries. To them, the ERC offers an additional startup funding for researchers moving to Europe. So additionally to the 1.5 to 2.5 million that the normal ERC grant is about, they can request 1 million more irrespectively of the grant scheme and to spend on any budget categories they want. The grantees can keep an affiliation with a home institution outside of Europe. We ask the ERC grantees to do a significant part of their work time in Europe, meaning at least 50%, but they can still keep a foot outside of Europe if they want. Team members can be based outside of Europe, and grantees can move within Europe with the grant. What I said before about the portability. This is the calendar for the year coming. So for the year, starting grants 25 and consolidated grant 25 are ongoing. So these are closed. You can apply to starting grant 26. The call will open in July. You can apply to the consolidator grant 26. This will open in September 25. You can still apply to the advanced grant 25, which will open in May. These are some figures about the ERC. The most important ones, I can say that more than 13,000 researchers were funded by the ERC since 2007. Together, they employed almost 100,000 researchers in their teams, and they published more than 200,000 articles from their projects. Also, we are quite proud of the fact that the ERC grantees have received 14 Nobel Prizes, 6 Field Medals, 11 Wolf Prizes, among others. So what can you do to prepare for the ERC? Here, I will repeat a bit of what my colleague said, but first get the information early on. So register early, get familiar with the funding and tender portal of the European Commission, and download the templates. This will help you to prepare already. Read the documents. We have information for applicants, the work program, and frequently asked questions that explain how to prepare your proposal. Also, talk to your institution's grant office. You will need to be supported by an institution, so it's good to get aligned with them on exactly what you want to do and how they can help. Also, we encourage you to talk to the ERC grantees. We publish the name of the grantees. So if you think that somebody in your field can support you, can give you advice, we encourage you to talk to them. You can also contact the ERC directly to ask your questions. And importantly, get the written consent of your collaborators before the submission deadline. Like I said, the ERC is about supporting individual PIs, but you are allowed to have collaborators, of course, but you need to really be sure that they are informed and that they are prepared to support your project. These are some useful links that you can find all the information I talked to you about. Then choose your host institution. You can choose any host institution in an EU member state or associated country. You can change it during the project's life. And we encourage you to negotiate. Like I said, ERC is seen as very prestigious, so be ready to negotiate with them for a better position, for access to equipment and infrastructure, for getting administrative support with your grant, etc. There is a rumor that I want to debunk here, is that the quality fame of the host institution increases the chances to get an ERC grant. Well, this is not true. Like I said, the HI is not an evaluation criterion. Then choose your grant type and make sure you are eligible. The eligibility window for the starting grant and the consolidator grant is calculated according to the 1st of January of the year of the call. So here I give the window, the time frame of your PhD defense, if you want to apply to the starting grant or consolidator grant 26. If you previously applied to an ERC call, check the resubmission restrictions I mentioned before. We have a minimum 50% time requested to work in an EU member state or associated country, and also minimum time commitment on the project. If you apply to a starting grant, you have to dedicate at least 50% of your time to the project. For a consolidator, this is 40% of your time. For an advanced or synergy, it's 30% of your time. There are extensions of the eligibility window possible for the starting grant and consolidator for the following cases: for maternity leave, for paternity leave, any long-term illness of the principal investigator, or for taking care of a close family member, for military service, for clinical training in the case of medical doctors, natural disaster, seeking asylum, or disability. And there is no limit to the total years of extension. Then you have to choose your panel. The applicant chooses the panel in which they want to be evaluated. Here you have the 28 different ERC panels, 9 for the life sciences, 11 for the physical sciences and engineering, and 8 for the social sciences. Personally, I work with the LS7 since many years in the LS7, so prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of human diseases. Choosing the right panel is very important. Proposals are initially assigned to the panel of their choice. You can also flag one secondary panel if you wish. If you believe that your proposal is within the expertise of 2 different panels, you can explain the interdisciplinary nature of the proposal in the part B1 of the project. I also want you to be aware that even if you choose your panel, a proposal can be transferred between panels. It may occur if there is a clear mistake on part of the applicant, or if the necessary expertise is available in a different panel than the one you chose. And this is a scientific decision, not an administrative one. For example, I would not be the one to make the decision of such a transfer. It's the panel chairs of both panels. So the outgoing panel chair and the incoming panel chair have to both agree that a proposal needs to be transferred. There is again a rumor that choosing the panel strategically can increase the chance of success. This is really not true, and we advise you to choose the panel that best fits the proposal. The overall budget is distributed among the scientific panels as a function of demand, so it's really pro rata. The more the more submissions there are to a panel, the more funding this panel will have, but this results in a success rate that is equal amongst panels. Then you have to prepare your application. There are some administrative forms which are online, the Part A, annexes submitted as PDF, a statement of support of the HI, any documentation that is needed to explain some parts of your project, but these are not seen by the panel. The panel sees the Part B1, the Part B2, and the budget, only the budget from the Part A. And now we'll give more definitions of these, the Part B1 and the Part B2. So the Part B1 is the abstract and possibly the explanation of the cross-panel nature, the interdisciplinary nature of your proposal, a synopsis of the research, 5 pages, and the CV and track record of the applicant, up to 4 pages. This is seen only at the step 1. And then the part B2 is seen at the step 2. And you provide the full scientific proposal for 14 pages and the funding idea. So any past grants that you have received, 1 page, a very brief summary. So for the part A, carefully choose your descriptors and 3 keywords. So every ERC panel has descriptors, which will influence which panels will evaluate your proposal. They are also the basis of the allocation to the panel members, and they will also determine whether a cross-panel evaluation is necessary. So the ongoing rumor now is that the panel descriptors represent scientific priorities. This is not true. So these descriptors are indicative, so that the PIs can see what expertise is in the panel, what you can expect in terms of expertise from the panel members. You choose the subject of your proposal, and the panel will use this excellence criterion to judge whether it should be funded. Not in terms of priorities, this descriptor is more important than another. This is really not true. There is another rumor. So interdisciplinarity is very important in science now, but it is not an evaluation criterion. So some people think that the more cross-panel descriptors you indicate, the higher the funding chances are, because you emphasize the ID nature of the proposal. Well, once the proposals are allocated, the panel members do not see the keywords and descriptors used. So really, this is not a good strategy. You should really choose the descriptors that are relevant to your research. Now for the part B1. So there's the research project and the CV. So the evaluation is focused on the groundbreaking nature, ambition, feasibility of the proposed research project. You have here on the right of the right-hand side of the slide the questions that the panel members are asked to answer during their evaluation. To what extent does the proposed research address important challenges? How are the objectives ambitious and go beyond the state of the art? And to what extent is the feasibility of the project, bearing in mind the groundbreaking nature and the ambition of the proposed research? I would like to point out that there's no more an explicit reference to high risk, high gain. You may have heard a lot about ERC being about high risk, high gain research. This is still the case. We encourage risky research, but we don't use this term as such because it was sometimes misused in terms of understanding what it meant. The same is true for novel methodologies. We used to have a question to panel members about the use of novel methodologies. Well, we removed this because novel methodologies is an element that may be positive, but it's not necessary. Maybe an excellent proposal can use well-established methodologies to carry out a novel idea. So the focus is more on the idea than the methodologies used to accomplish it. Then you have the CV and the track record of the applicant. There are 3 sections: personal details about the education, the qualifications, the current position, and any previous positions they have had. The achievements and the peer recognition. You can provide a short factual narrative on the significance of these listed achievements, and then any additional information. So any addition on their research career to provide context to the panel members when they are assessing the project and the CV. For example, you can list career breaks, diverse career paths, life events that have affected your trajectory, any other noteworthy contribution to research community. This, I will insist a bit on this. It's really a focus of Maria Leptin, the ERC president. She believes that, if you are a peer reviewer, if you stand on editorial boards, if you are on the scientific council of your host institution, you take some time to help the community while you don't carry out your own research. Well, she wants to recognize this. So if you have something to say about yourself, about your position in the community, about how you devote your time, this can really be seen as a positive when assessing your CV. We recommend that you use the template with the 3 sections, but this is not mandatory. Explain what have been your own contribution to the publications that you list. You should convince the panel that you are at the forefront of your research field. You could also explain the publishing habits in your field and country if needed. Then please describe accurately any other activity that can indicate scientific maturity. And if you know that you have gaps or other issues in your CV, explain them in the additional information section. One persistent rumor is that, especially in the life science field, one needs publication in very high impact factor journals to succeed, like Nature, Cell, Science. Well, this is not true, but you might want to explain your contribution to your articles, explain, like I said, in the publishing habits of your field, if a journal maybe has a low impact factor, it is one of the best journals in the field. And also, if you focus only on high impact factor publications with your former supervisors, these may raise doubts in the panel about your maturity or scientific independence, which is not something that we want. You should really demonstrate how you are already independent or on a good path to become independent and to carry out an ambitious project on your own. So writing the B1 is really about finding the right balance, because it gives the first impression of yourself and of your project. And this will determine if you pass to step 2. So basically, I see it personally as an appetizer. You have to give something to the panel that will interest them in seeing more with in the B2 and inviting you to the interview. We recommend then to avoid any jargon, to avoid any excessive highlighting, to not try to oversell your project. Importantly, also make sure there are no typos, because this is very annoying to panel members. I can testify to that, having seen the conversation. Also, we recommend that you make it as accessible as possible to a generalist. Finally, make sure that there are proper legends to the figure tables, as well as that the figure axes are clearly visible. So really make a comprehensive summary of your research to give the panel an idea of what you want to do, and therefore that they want to see you at the step 2. Then the part B2 is the full research proposal. You can provide all the details. First, make sure that there is an obvious link between the 2 parts, so there are no surprises to the panel members when they review B2 after having seen B1. Make sure that the project is easy to read and attractive. Use all the full space. You have 14 pages for your research project. Use them all, I would say, because 14 pages actually is not a lot to explain the ambitious projects that of the type the ERC wants to attract. Also, make sure you give all the references for your research, and these are excluded from the page count. So this is not written by me, but I fully agree that there is no excuse for skipping the references. One important thing in the B2, you could also add some sort of timeline, how you see the project will go over the 5 years. Do not repeat the synopsis, but go into the details of the methodology and the work plan. Explain the hypothesis, provide supporting evidence if it exists, any preliminary data, but all this you can already give a taste in B1, but in the B2 you can really provide everything that you think is relevant. Also, ERC is about frontier research, so going beyond the state of the art. So make sure that you explain the quantitative and qualitative differences between your research and the existing state of the art. Show that you know your field, you did your homework, and you are prepared to go beyond that. An important point also is to provide alternative strategies to mitigate risk. We high risk, high gain was the motto of the ERC, even if it's not a specific question now. So high risk research is encouraged, but you need to explain what you would do if things do not go as planned, as often they do in research. Also, I would advise that you give an outline of these contingency strategies already in part B1, maybe a summary of it and the full explanation in B2, but it's a good idea already to provide some in B1. Fill in your funding ID fully in the B2 and think of the project as a team. So the project is carried out by a PI, but leading a team. Explain how team members and collaborators are involved and how they will contribute to the research. But be careful because ERC are not consortium proposals. What you want to avoid is to give the impression that you are managing a team of people doing different things in their on their own and not having a fully integrated project. You will be the PI of the team. It's your idea, relying on collaborators, but not being critically depending of them. Also, at the step 2, the budget is scrutinized by the panel. So explain properly your resources and your budget. The panels have the responsibility to ensure that the resources requested are reasonable and justified. So they can cut budgets for anything that is not well explained. We don't allow them to cut, let's say, 100,000 for all proposals just to get one more. This is not allowed, but they can cut projects if they believe that the PI has not made a good job of explaining why they want this money and how it will be used. However, we do not let the panels to micromanage the project finances. In the end, the panel make a recommendation to the agency about the maximum budget allowed for a project, and it's made on a take it or leave it. There are no negotiations possible once the panel has given their opinion. But of course, this type of questions can be clarified during the interview. So you have to prepare for the interview also for budget questions. And finally, maybe a minor point, but important nonetheless, open access is obligatory under Horizon Europe. So you can ask for funding for publishing your your articles through open access. This is a allowed category, so don't hesitate to do it. There are some rumors about the budget again. Well, if I do not ask for a large sum, I have no chances because ERC only funds complex and expensive projects. Well, this is not true. There are areas where it may make little sense to ask for the maximum amount. No grant was ever rejected for asking too few funds. And then asking for funding beyond the maximum because anyhow the panel will cut it down. Well, it's true that unexplained or non-motivated requests can be cut down. So if you artificially inflate your budget, the extra funding will be indeed cut. But if you are prepared to explain everything in your request, then you have high chances of getting everything. Well, suppose after the B1 you have been invited for the interview. What to do? Prepare for a presentation. Clear and representative slides and focus on science. There will be a scientific conversation with the panels. Don't make a business presentation. You're not selling something, you are talking to scientists. Keep the time, and in this, the ERC personnel will also pay attention to that. Anticipate questions. Prepare for cases where you do not have an answer. You can ask. Some institutions I know prepare mock-up interviews. Use these opportunities because this will give you a good idea of what to expect in a ERC interview. Try to keep your answers short. Go to the point because the panelists will have many questions and you want to provide as much information as you can. So don't talk too much in an unfocused way. Really get straight to what you want to say. You should know the details of your proposal and of your methods, but also your research area. Who are your competitors? Who are your collaborators? How they can contribute? Why are you ahead of the competitor? Why are you the best person to do this type of project? And also importantly, between the moment you submit your project and the moment you are to the interview, they can be as much as 6 months. So probably you have new data, new work to present, you are allowed to present it. Come with all the new information to defend your cause. Here I present some typical reasons for rejection. Well, if the research project, if the scope is too narrow, or if it is too broad and unfocused, this can be a typical reason for rejecting a project. There are no clear groundbreaking aspects, and the project is seen more as incremental research over something that was already done before. Or, like I mentioned this already, if it is seen as a collaborative project with several PIs rather than only one really leading the effort. If the work plan is not detailed enough, if the risk management is not clearly exposed, or if the part B2 did not give information on the methodology, and therefore the panel has some concerns about feasibility of the project. Reasons about the principal investigator, well, if the track record is not good enough, if you have not demonstrated that you are on a good path to becoming independent and capable of conducting the research. If you are rejected, we advise you to keep trying. It's difficult to write an ERC project application, but reapplications have a higher success rate. You can use the feedback from the evaluation reports. As I said, you receive all the individual reviews, also the summary of the discussion. So use what is said in this feedback to build a better application for the next time. Again, some rumors. So contrary to what you may think, the panel descriptors do not represent ERC scientific priorities. The success rate is not linked to academic age. This I have not mentioned before, it's important. The success rate is quite flat among the academic age. So we see as many percent of PIs being 2 years post-PhD getting a starting rank than people 6 years after PhD. The same for consolidator, the same for advanced. The publication record is not decisive in selection decisions. Publication record is an important factor to take into account, but it's not only on this that the panels decide on who to reject and who to keep. And again, I repeat it because this is very important. The host institution is not evaluated. It's not a criterion for the ERC evaluation. There are more information available, and specifically, my colleagues at ERC have made some very useful videos in which they go over what I said, but with many more details about what to consider before applying, how to fill the application, what happens at the interview, and how the evaluation works. So you have the link on this slide. It's on YouTube. The ERC has a YouTube channel with all these videos, and I believe they are very useful for an applicant. Well, that's it on my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vikas. Really helpful, everything you said. And also I like the rumors because there are a lot of, rumors that actually are not true, and they may represent obstacles in application. So we have time for a few questions before jumping into our next session with actually scientists that got an ERC or a Marie Curie grant. So if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat. I want to ask with a question that actually is a very frequent question among physicians and scientists. As you know, in our audience, as you may imagine, our audience, we have oncologists, so physicians, scientists, junior investigators that are MD, did the residency, and then the PhD. So the question is regarding eligibility, and I ask this question both to Dr. Vikas and to Dr. Sorkan for the Marie Curie. So is an MD valid as a PhD degree? How is the residency considered? Could you please clarify this? We start maybe with Dr. Vikas and then Dr. Sorkan.
Yes, so for the ERC, an MD is considered as enough to apply, and then if the MD does not have a PhD, the date considered for the eligibility is then the MD plus 2 years. And if they have a PhD, then it's the PhD which counts. And there's also an extension of the eligibility window for clinical training up to 4 years.
Okay, and to check eligibility, they can reach out to the national contact points, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, Dr. Sorkan, thank you.
Yeah, so for MSCA, so both are eligible. So young postdoctoral after 8 year after the PhD are eligible for to apply for postdoctoral fellowships, but older ones, senior researchers, could be a supervisor. So as you see, MSCA is a mobility. It's a mobility, two-way mobility process, and both of them are eligible. Of course, if you would like to be a supervisor, you need to have some scientific reputation, not only publication, but also some capacity, some experience in research project or programs. But on the same time, you need to have experience with the mentoring. So being a supervisor for postdoc or doctoral students is very important to be a successful and dedicated supervisor for Marie Curie postdoc fellowships.
Thank you. So regarding another quite frequent question regarding how much the ERC, how much time do I have to put on a side to write an ERC grant? And shall I start from the B1 or from the B2? These are very practical questions, Dr. Vikas.
Yes, well, of course. So I'm not an ERC grantee. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Is things I have heard, I've seen, and maybe the presentation later can be more informative. But what I have heard from a very successful grantee, so 3 times grantee, is that she started with writing the B2 and then condensing for the B1. About the time it takes, well, at least 3 months, and maybe even more, because you want to get your idea, to present it clearly, to think about it, to present to others that you can integrate their feedback. So an ERC application takes a lot of time. So really prepare well in advance.
Okay, thank you. We have a question in the chat, very comprehensive presentations, so thank you. There is a question regarding preliminary data. How solid should they be for an ERC application?
As solid as they can be, very solid. Of course, well, you understand that the ERC is about high risk. If you have interesting data that contradict maybe the non-state of the art, and you want to explore this, and you should at least have some data to present in your application. And hopefully, if you are invited to the step 2 in the 6 months, you have built more, and you can also show it during the interview. But you should have already something that is convincing that the path you want to follow is a good thinking.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, if there are no other questions, I really thank both of you, Dr. Vikas, Dr. Sorkan. Thanks for being with us. I know you will share your presentation. They will be available on our OSCI website. So thanks a lot also for this material.